What's up everyone, welcome back to the final part of this tutorial video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the full texturing process. And we got a lot to do, so let's not waste any time and let's just dive into it. Alright, so now jumping over to Substance, let's go ahead and load in our FBX file. So we can go up to File, New, Start a New Project, and press Select. We can go and find our FBX model. And I can import, so press OK, leave everything as is. I mean, you don't have to import cameras, but we don't have any, so it doesn't really matter. All right, and let's take a look at our model. Sometimes it's nice to quickly look around, see if anything's jumping out. I also like to quickly look at my textures, my UVs, and things are looking fine. So we can go ahead and bake out our textures. So let's go up to the little croissant symbol at the top, or we can go up here and go Mode, go to Bake Mesh Maps. And we're going to set the output size to 4K or whatever output size you would like. I always find it's easier to bake out your textures in a higher resolution. It's always easier to downsize textures than it is to upsize them. So I always like just working in 4K. And then use low poly mesh as high poly mesh. We're going to check on because we're only using one mesh to work with. And I'm also going to go down to our ambient occlusion down here, and I'm going to set self-occlusion to only mesh name. That's because we're repeating a lot of objects, and you're going to see weird shading in our materials because it's taking the information from the same object in multiple locations. You're going to see weird shading. It's only going to happen in our editor, but it's just easier to work with if you set self-occlusion to only by mesh name. We don't really have to do anything else. We can go ahead and bake our textures. So when it comes to the textures, I'm going to use this reference as our main reference. So we're going to add a different color for the other ones, of course, but we're going to try to go for something like this, a little bit worn out on the edges, some painted wood. It's pretty straightforward. We're hopefully going to get through this pretty quickly. So when it comes to texturing, I always like to really not worry too much about how things are looking right away. We can always refine the materials as we go. It's more about just getting something in the scene and then kind of building off of it. So we're actually going to go to our smart materials over here because there's some really great smart materials we can work off of. And this is wood, of course. So I'm going to start by just dragging on one of these wood materials. So I'm going to grab, for example, wood beech veined. We can drag that on. It already looks pretty cool. Now, one thing I am going to do is just change the orientation. So as you can see, depending on the rotation of our shell, we're having the grains go in specific directions. And I feel like this one, for example, would be better if it was horizontal. This one's good horizontal, so we don't want to technically, this one's actually nice being vertical. So what we're gonna do is just not worry about that right now. We're just going to get a cool color going on there, and then we can go ahead and duplicate it and rotate the other one depending on which mesh we want our grains to, which direction we want them to go into. So I'm just going to go down to the wood color here. There's a few things we can do. Or a few ways we can go about this. We can add a fill layer and then add a color. So I'm just going to go down. This only has a color channel applied up here. And I can change it to more of a red like our reference. So I'm just going to make it a darker red. We can also just change it in the wood itself by the color here. We can go ahead and just change the wood to a darker red as well. So there's different ways we can go about it depending on how we want it to look. Let's just do it like that for now. We're also going to change the roughness. So I'm going to drag this down. I want it to be not as rough. And I also find it's very grainy, and I don't necessarily want all the grains, so let's go ahead and check some of these off. The wood fibers we like. I'm actually gonna go to our attributes here, and I can just drag down the amount so it's not so crazy. Something like that, let's say. Once again, we're not going to obsess over it right now. We're going to check off the dirt. I don't want the dirt. And there's also the wood pattern here. which I'm not really a fan of. It looks a little bit dirty, which we like, but we can just leave that for now. Maybe we can go into it and just drag down the dirt level a tiny bit. Let's go back to our colors. As you can see, just kind of jumping around. I'm not obsessing over anything in particular right now. I'm trying to get some color into the scene. So once we're kind of have an idea, let's just rename this, double click it and name it red so we know. We can right click, set it to a black mask. I'm going to go over here to our polygon fill tool on the left, and then I'm going to switch it to mesh fill. And then if I want to add it on 1, if I want to take it away, it's on 0. So I'm going to click on the objects where I want the red color applied. Perfect. And just like that, we have our first color trait. Now don't worry, we're going to change a lot of things. For example, we can go in and change the wood fibers. So these ones I'm actually going to call wood fibers vertical. Wood fibers vertical. And we can either duplicate these and assign them to different ones. So for example, there's different ways we can go about this. We can just add a empty folder, drag our wood fibers in, right click. Let's call this a vertical. These are all our vertical wood grain materials, as you can see. We can actually add this in as well. And put it below those. So this is all of our wood pattern. And I can right click the folder and set it to a black mask and assign it only to the vertical pieces that we want. So for example, this one I like being vertical. I like the direction of those wood grains as well, and down here. But these ones, actually this one's fine as well, just not this one. So what we're gonna do is hold Alt, I can click and drag to duplicate it. We're gonna deselect everything by dragging our slider to 1, and then I'm only gonna apply it to this one. So I can go into this folder, grab my wood veins, we can change the rotation of them to 90. We're gonna do it to this one as well. So now these ones are going horizontal to match the other wood pieces. It's gonna fit a little bit better. Now what I don't like is this one too much. So we're gonna go to the color. I'm actually just gonna remove the color completely. We can drag that wood grain if we want a little bit more. So same with this one. I don't like it as much. So I can click on that and change the height. As you can see, it's going really cracked. We don't want it being too deep. So something like that maybe. Obviously personal preference too, whatever you think works. So let's just leave it like that for now. I'm not gonna worry too much. Let's also assign it to our little pieces here. We're gonna come back and add some dirt and grunge afterwards. So let's go ahead and add another wood. So we're just gonna use the same one. You can experiment by dragging some on to see what works and what doesn't. But what I'm gonna do is just reuse this one. I like the direction. We're gonna remove those ones I don't want. So let's change the color to more of a yellow. What you can also do is use the eyedropper, and I can go to my other screen and eyedrop a color if I want. Sometimes it doesn't work as well, but this is gonna be more of a bright yellow. Let's play around with it, see, kind of like a slightly orange yellow. Seems like something like this maybe. We can come back and tweak the colors afterwards. Let's just get something in. I always find it's actually easier to try to not obsess over those details right away. As you can see, we forgot an axle too, so we can actually jump back into Maya after and export that in. Not that it really matters. All right, so let's just keep going. So we have more of a wood color for the insides. So let's just go back to these. So let's add another one. It's a little bit darker. And that will be our hub, let's call it. Black mask, and fill in those inside ones. All right, we're also gonna apply that to these. So I'm gonna copy, Control C, go to our second texture set. I can paste, and it's gonna apply it to those other hubs as well. And let's apply it to the axles as well. All right, so let's move on. Let's just go down the chain here. So we're gonna add, we need the metal for these metal pieces. I'm gonna choose an iron forge. Let's try, we actually have to go back to our first texture. Or a steel stained, any of these work. Let's do a stained black mass. Let's just assign it to this right now. I'm not gonna obsess too much. We just wanna get something in there. So a really easy way as well is if you already have things set up like this one where I have my green set up in 2 different directions, I'm gonna copy this red, go to my texture 2, just delete that empty folder, and let's just paste it. So nothing's gonna happen, it's not assigned to anything. Sometimes I double check by sliding my slider to 0 to make sure it's not assigned to anything. See if it's on 1, it's gonna assign it to, no, actually I can't because these are in folders, so it doesn't really matter because I have to actually assign it with, because these are on both black masks. So it doesn't really matter actually for the master folder, but if we go in further, we can set our grains. So these ones I do want to be horizontal. So I'm going to go in here. And these ones are, I'm just double checking. Yeah, these are the ones that I want. The horizontal, these are opposites. I don't want to confuse you guys. Let's just name these. Uncheck it from this box. So we only have these side ones. And I also want to just ease up some of these grains, the fibers. They're looking a little strong, so we can go through and actually just reduce them. And I think it's actually coming from my wood, so we can actually go here as well. Let's change the height range of the grains. As you can see, it's gonna affect how bumpy it is. Don't want this one to be too bumpy. Let's do something like this for now. We're gonna call this one blue. So we need to, of course, go in and change the color. I'm gonna eyedrop our picture, our reference photo, to just get me in the general range of the color, and then we can go in and adjust it according so. So let's just go to like a blue. That looks cool. Let's just do that. Now we also need to assign it to the roof. And I want them being the opposite direction. So what I'm going to do is assign it to this one. And I'm going to go in to this folder and copy the blue color. So what we can actually do is copy this number, Control C, go up to our other red, and just paste it. So I know the colors are going to be the same. And then we need to also change the rotation of our wood, because as you can see, it looks like it's going this way. I want to change this to 90, so it's going the long way. All right, so we have this one very roughly blocked out. So let's do the exact same thing. We're gonna just hold Alt, drag it down, deselect it from everything. This one's gonna be called green. So let's go in, we want the horizontal lines, double check to see if they're going the right direction. And let's change the color. as well. So let's go into blue. I'm gonna eyedrop as well, just to get me in the general color. Let's go with like a green, like that, like an olive green maybe. And we're also gonna assign this to the wheels, so I need to go to my green. And what I'm gonna do is for this bottom one, I don't want the grains as much. So once again, we're just gonna remove some of these. I'm gonna remove this one and the base wood. As you can see, these all do different things, so you can mess around with them, drag that down. I think that looks better. And for this one, maybe we do I'm not sure actually what we do for this one. Maybe we do a different color. Let's grab another wood beached vein. Maybe this will be wood color for this. I kind of like that idea. What I'm going to do is actually change this color. We're just experimenting right now. I'm going to go dark. I'm going to delete the dirt right now. So do a black mask, assign it to those. And what we're going to do is just duplicate this over, just like we did before, assign it to this one. But for this one, we're going to just rotate it because I don't want the grains being horizontal. So we're just going to play around with those. I don't want this. I'm going to delete that one. Let's go into the wood fibers, rotate them, and rotate these wood veins as well. All right, so we have our wood. And you know what? Maybe these ones add a variation of color. The corners will be a little bit darker, let's say. That looks cool. And for this other one, what color should we do? We could try taking the yellow that we have in our first one. So let's go back to this. Check out the yellow. Let's just first off adjust the color. I think it just needs to be a little bit more dull. Maybe, I'm not sure. Let's do something like that, maybe. Let's just copy our yellow, Control C. Go back to our other textures set here. And let's just paste it on top. And we can assign it our folder. Oh, it's actually part of our this texture set already. Don't know how I feel about this one, so let's just actually add a separate one in. Maybe this will be a different color, so let's do the exact same thing we've been doing. Rotate those grains. Now if they look better, the grains the other way for you, keep them that way. It's all personal preference. There is no right and wrong, so don't worry too much about it. And we're going to change the color. Let's try maybe an orange. Could be fun for that one. All right. So next up, let's just jump back to our first one, and let's actually add, so there's some cool things we can do. Let's go to, for example, I'm trying to just explore with some materials right now. So this wood rough, which looks too rough. Let's go back to our smart materials. We're gonna add that beached color. And what I'm gonna do is go to our smart masks over here. We can drag on different smart masks to get different effects on our model. So you can just go through and drag them on. So for example, the sharp dirt, I can drag it on to the black mask, and it's gonna show it in, if I go to the actual attributes here, you can affect where that dirt's gonna show. So we're looking for more of like an edge wear. So let's just grab some of these occlusions. That's actually not too bad. Let's just keep going. We're gonna maybe grab one of these edge strong. Drag it down. And we're gonna make it a darker color. So let's open up this. We can mess around with the color of that wood that's underneath. So it's gonna be a darker wood. You can't see it too much, so we need to increase. So start to see that edge wear everywhere. It's looking better. It just needs to be more. So let's just keep layering it. So let's go ahead and let's add another wood beached, for example. And we can just click off some of these because we don't really need necessarily the grains to show. And let's add another smart mask. So a lot of it's just experimenting. Even the harder one's nice, but we can just drag it down a bit because we don't want it that crazy. Something like that maybe. And let's go back into the folder and let's change the color as well to make it a little bit lighter so there's a mixture of woods. Starting to look a little bit more worn out. Let's go back in. Let's add another one. You can just keep layering. Turn off our grain, wood fibers. Go back to smart masks. And let's choose another one. So maybe something that's a bit more covering, like the surface wear is cool. So for this one, we're gonna do something a bit different. So I'm gonna drag it down. I don't want it to be so crazy. So let's just drag a lot of it down. The curvature. And we're gonna go into this color and we're gonna actually make it black. So I'm gonna start adding in some dirt, some grungy areas. As you can see, it's very subtle. I like just slowly, very slowly working it up. And you can do some cool stuff. We can do black, the plain black, for example. Or maybe slightly brown. And let's go back to our masks here. We can keep dragging on other ones. Let's do like soft damage, for example. It's cool making it a little bit more. Maybe we need a little bit more of a, let's do just a plain color. Maybe a roughness. Let's make it rough. And let's go back to add a bit more edge wear and scratches. But drag down the curvature so it's not so strong on those edges. Drag down those a little bit. So this is going to maybe more curvature. And we can kind of keep going down this route. So I don't like the black. So what you can do is like, I like the black everywhere but around here. So sometimes I like to go through and add a folder. You can add that in as a black mask, or even better, as a white mask. So it's gonna stay on everywhere, and you can paint off areas where you don't want it. Because I basically like it everywhere except for around that top piece. That looks better. So let's go through and add a little bit more dirt. So as you can see, we're just very slowly building it up. And there's some cooler stuff we can do too. Like you can add a fill layer, which is height, for example. So you can drag that down, maybe add some spots. So you might not see it yet, but let's just increase this. As you can see, it's affecting the bump of the material. So you can do random things like this, like if you wanted just to add a little bit of bump. I mean, that's a bad example. But let's add some dirt. Let's try this one. This one's kind of nice because it's going to make, let's go more of a brown. You can exit it if you don't like it and go back and keep trying different things. Try paint old. A lot of it's just about experimenting. Curvature, drag it down the curvature, but bring it up everywhere else. And what I don't like is the black from let's go in further. We can see what's causing this. Our grunge. I don't like those stripes, so we're just going to remove those. I'm going to do it on this as well. We need a little bit more dirt on this red material, so what we can do is just go back in. Let's add another fill layer. Now we're gonna do one other thing that I don't like, but let's just black, and we can add like dusk occlusion is a good one sometimes. So what this will do is make it darker in certain areas, maybe not that one. Let's go back to a dust surface. And as you can see, this one's affecting just the insides, and we want the opposite. So we can go down and invert it, so it's only affecting the edges. Drag this down. The curvature always makes a big difference. As you can see, what we're going to do is just actually, let's see. We can add a level, we can add a filter if you want to blur maybe. So we can blur those edges. So as you can see, it's kind of darker around the edges now. We can increase it more. It's going to kind of build a custom AO in a sense. Just going to give it an overall dirtier shape, which is nice. All right, and that looks pretty cool. So let's just move on. So one thing I don't like is the black, and that's happening from this material here. So I like the black, but not in certain areas. So once again, since it's in a folder, you can actually go in and deselect it from certain phases or UV shells. So for example, I don't want it on these specific UV chunks. I think called UV chunk fill, yeah. Or in here. You know, it's too black. I don't think it helps anything. I like it black just along certain spots. All right, so that looks great. Now what we can do if we want to cheat a little bit is we can grab our, let's delete this one, we're not using it. Shift and select all those, go Control C. Let's go to our second texture. And this yellow we're not using either. Let's delete it. And we can Control V and paste it. We're going to transfer all the same attributes over to our other ones. And there's a few things that just jump out. One thing is I don't like how specular the blue is. So we're going to go into our blue. We can make this a bit more rough. And it's actually not that, it's the edge. I don't like how shiny this stuff is. So if you want to find out what that is, just saving, we can go and check things on and off to see which is causing that. I don't even know. Nothing is. I think it's just the shape. Alright, so there's a few details I wanted to add. One thing I don't like is the black on the tires, which is coming from this one. So it's on a folder, luckily, so we can just deselect this UV shell. And I also don't like the other black as well, because so we're gonna do the same thing as add this one into a folder, white mask. I'm gonna deselect it from these shells here, so to help hide those repeating patterns. And I don't also like the orange color. So we're gonna go back to our first one. It's always nice naming them, that way it's easier to find. I know I'm really bad for that in my videos, so make it a bit more dull so it looks more old. So one thing I really like are the windows. So if you look at our reference, it has like these colors around the window. It's like just normal wood color. So we're gonna do the same. We're gonna actually make it a bit more beaten up too, especially in the blue. So we can actually go to our blue color, which is textures 2. Go inside of our blue, and let's add a bit more to this one. I guess we can add a little bit more. Worn out materials on the bottom. And for some reason, it's looking really weird on this one. So I'm gonna go white mask, just like we've been doing, and then just deselect it from these tires. And we're also gonna do the same thing for the top part. So I'm gonna do maybe a moss. Actually, yeah, that should look pretty cool. Let's go change the color again to like a light wood. Fake it. And this is also going to go into a folder. We can black mask this time and only select the ones, the objects we wanted. So these boxes, maybe the roof as well. Cool, so that looks better. So let's go through and let's actually add this other piece. So we're gonna go to our Smart Materials. I'm gonna add a blue material, a wood material, the plain one. I'm gonna right click and do black mask. And this time we're gonna go into our brushes, and I'm gonna select maybe medium brush, should work. There's different ways you can go about this. You also have the lazy mouse up here. So this is really handy, so you can select the distance. So when you're trying to make them a bit more curved, if you don't have a steady hand like I do, if I don't have a steady hand. All Alright, so what we're gonna do, I need these actually being really small. Oh, I'm still dragging, so it's still working, but I have buttons on the side of my mouse, so I hit them sometimes and it does that. We're gonna do the same thing with our eraser tool. Just cut it back a bit. These are much more rounded. Now you can also do UV fill, so if you set nice UVs around these pieces, you can actually just UV fill, so you don't have to actually eyeball it with your eyes like I am. Now the nice thing is usually these would be all sharing the same UV space. So yeah, this one's being covered, but not the other side. So we're gonna have to actually go through, unfortunately, and do this side as well. So let's just do a quick one. We can come through and clean it up after. I just wanna get something on. I think what helps people usually is like learning to not obsess over getting it perfect. So for example, right now, these outside lines are by no means perfect, but I can come through and erase them after. And I feel like redoing things a million times, try to nail it that first, time is always just more time consuming. Maybe that's just how my brain works. Like, do whatever obviously works best for you, but trying your best not to obsess over getting it perfect, knowing that things will change. And you're kind of just going with the flow. Bob Ross style, like when he paints things and he's like, oh, it's okay. Make a little imperfections. Sometimes happy mistakes do happen. All right, so I like that. The only thing we're gonna do is just change the color, make it a bit darker of a wood. We could always make them slightly bigger too. Maybe we'll come back and check that out after, but hopefully you're getting the idea. And, these wheels, maybe the green needs a little bit more of some edge wear around the tires, something like this. Let's just add a bit more. We can add this into a folder, black mask. I'm just going to assign it to some of these tires. And I think we can add a little bit more. So what we can do is, like, for example, on that blue, we added this nice little chipping effect. Well, let's go through in this and let's actually add a height channel to it. And we can drag this in a bit. And now it's just going to give it a little bit. So if I go on and off, you can see how it's giving a nice bump to it. Now what we're going to do is just deselect the ones on the inside, because it's really bringing out the bump on the inside walls, and you're really not supposed to even see them. I'm just going to help hide that material. do something like this. So let's go back to our red. I find the red is just a little bit strong, maybe, I don't know. So let's go back and desaturate it a little bit. Or make it, I don't know, something like that. You always play around with the colors afterwards. See what works, what doesn't. And when you're looking at little details like that bevel we were talking about earlier when we were modeling, like it's not much of a difference. And is it worth, adding all those extra polys just to attach the cylinder when they can just go through and they look almost identical? So like you'd be surprised what you can get away with. The other thing I don't want is, it's this one. Is all this dirt. We're gonna just take this steel stain and drag it to the top. Because I don't want all that dirt to be over top. You see how this one looks very dirty, and I kind of want them to be shinier. I think that's cool. Maybe we have like that. So if I go to my other texture as well, we can do the same thing because I don't have it actually applied. So let's go steel stained, drag it under, black mask, and assign it to these specific objects as well. There we go. The funny thing is that this is actually having, it looks fine, but it's taking the mesh we have on this side, because we have a hole coming out, as you can see. And not just because it's picking up the curvature, so one of these, it's actually all of these in one, but if they're in folders, you can go through and just like erase on the spot so you can see which ones are really affecting it. So let's find the culprit. It's one of these. That's a good way of seeing it too. Turn off the green, and now you can really see which one is causing it. Let's just go through. There it is. It's this one. So this blue, it's one of these. It's this one. This one, here it is. We found it. So you can go to this folder and just erase it, which won't allow me, so we can change it from there. There we go. All right, and that's basically it. Like, this is just a really easy tutorial to show you how you can build up different colors and have, different effects. I want to have a little bit, let's say, a little bit more worn out edges, especially in the red. If you're looking at a reference, it looks a little bit more worn out on the edges. So we can actually go in and just keep kind of doing the same thing we were doing. We can add, actually there's something else we can go over really quickly in a sec too. Let's just really quickly add a bit more edge wear. Edge dusty might work. Yeah, that's a good one. And this one I can change the color as well to more of a, kind of like a white. It's almost like it's worn out a little bit. A little bit more edge wear on this one, which is kind of nice. It's kind of nice everywhere, but I don't want them everywhere. So what I'm going to do is just go white mask and just remove it from my tires. I think it's fine everywhere else. Also going to remove it from my hub. Let's go through. We can actually maybe drag this to be not necessarily bigger, but something like that. What we can do is copy the same one over to our other texture. Paste. you see, just adding a little bit more of a brightness to some of these objects. Now what I'm going to do is actually take it away from the bottom, because I think just the top looks good like that. All right. And now the other thing I wanted to quickly go over, since we are here, is adding a bit more variation to the roughness. So let's take a look at this first one. I also don't like the grain on the second. So on this second red piece, so we have two, right? We have one that's for this one and one that's for this one. Well, this red one is looking also a little bit bright. But I also don't like the grunge that it's showing right now. Let's just go through. It's like the vertical ones, right? Change rotation to 90. I didn't switch that. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. And I wanted to show something with the roughness variation. So as you can see, sorry, as I'm looking in, I don't like the big cracks on this one. I think I'm gonna take those away. Okay. Yeah, because it just was too much, I think. But as you can see, the roughness is very consistent, right? It's just looking very reflective. So what we can do in this red I'm gonna do as an example is that we can add a fill layer. In this fill layer, we're only going to have roughness, and we can go over to our textures tab, and there's lots of really cool roughness. Now you have to be cautious with these, so you can drag one onto your roughness, and as you can see, it's going to change it. So now it's looking very glossy, but we can drag it the opposite way and get some really cool effects. Now it's looking like it's wet, so it's a little aggressive. So let's maybe find a different one. You just have to play around with them till you find one that you're happy with. And then I'll show you what you can do. One sec. Let's just find one that kind of works like that. Gives us a bit more variation. To our roughness, which is nice. And then you can actually, let's just drag this a little further down so it's really reflective. And you can right click and go levels, and we can only affect the roughness level. And actually we can further affect how that roughness is viewed. So as you can see, this was before and this is after. This has a whole other level of detail. You can take it further, you can vary. Depends how reflective we want it to be, but I think that just looks a little bit better. Gives it more randomness. So we can just copy this over. Let's put this also on our blue texture. I feel like the blue, maybe the green needs it as well. Yeah, because look at the green, it looks pretty bad, to be honest. And there's no green. Not a big fan of that green material. And this is just going to help take it to another level. So let's go into the green. Let's see what's going on here. I think it's because we have no fibers going. I'm basically just looking for height range, normal, height position. Let's just see which ones we want. All right, we're gonna take that off. What we're gonna do is just paste it on here. That's really gonna help my wheel. No, it's not looking too grainy, so one sec. What we're gonna do is reduce this a little bit. And in this horizontal, because the green I'm not liking, we're gonna experiment with a few things. So what we're gonna do is add in a different wood. and experiment. Sometimes I like just throwing on different ones. This is a wood that we had earlier. As you can see, it's showing up a bit better now. It's this one. So I'm going to copy the wood veins. I'm going to delete the folder. I'm going to paste those veins on again. And the height, I'm going to drag way further. As you can see how shiny it is compared to the other ones. So we're going to go into our roughness. I'm going to just make it a little rougher. There we go. Something like that. Maybe the green itself needs to be a little bit brighter. Darker but brighter. More of a green. All right, so we can keep kind of tweaking things as we go. The red, I keep going back to the red because it's like our main, the main one on the front. And I kind of want it to be a bit more orange. We're gonna copy this color, paste it on this one as well. There we go, a little more orangey. And then we can add another effect because I feel like it needs to be a bit more. As you can see, you can kind of keep going and going. Sometimes you'll come across one that you like. So I'm looking for one that just shows not on the edges because I'm happy with the edges. I'm just not happy with the other areas. So maybe something like this. I can take down the curvature completely almost. So it's only showing in the other areas. Maybe we'll do like a dark brown and increase it. And let's add one more. Maybe we're going to do paint old. It is old paint. No, let's go cavities. This one's actually going to be pretty cool, but I need to take off the curvature because I don't want it necessarily just on the edges. But I like it in the other spots, so we can do that and then add kind of like a lighter brown like we were doing. And try things, explore things, because sometimes happy mistakes are real. Sometimes you'll come across something and you're like, oh shit, that looks way better than I thought it was. For example, I don't like the black on the bottom. I think it's looking too dark. And that's not even coming from this, it's actually coming from something up here. So let's go through. It's coming from this one. I don't want that, so I'm just going to deselect it from this specific object. There we go. I think that looks better. So once you're happy with it, not to keep dragging you guys on and on, we can keep, adding more details and more textures, but jumping into the renderer. So let's go ahead and press Array, the renderer up here. I'm going to turn on clear ground, and I'm also going to raise my floor. So let's go Y, let's bring that floor right up to match. It's a little bit high. Oh, let's go the opposite way, so 5, let's try. Let's go 4/8. keep going. Let's go for 5. There we go. Maybe we can fake it for 6 a little bit. I always like kind of a gap, very subtle, but just to really emphasize darkness on the wheel. I hate when objects are kind of going through the floor. Anyways, one other thing I like to do is jump into or scroll down to your focal length. So it starts at 17, which is crazy low. 50 is kind of what your eyes see the world as. Which I think 50 makes most sense. It helps make it feel realistic. You can also mess around with your lighting. So this is using panorama, which is nice, but you can also go up, change your environment map, something like a studio light, which is nice. Kind of like our reference is almost more like a studio light. And it really helps bring out some of the shininess. Don't like this wood, as you can see, so we can jump back at this point and really start dialing in different details. So another important thing is also change your resolution. So 1920 by 1080 I'm going to do. And for example, like I like the blue. I think the green could be more green, the yellow could be more yellow, and the wood on the back. So at this point, let's jump back into the editor and we can start tweaking things. So not to drag this on much more, but let's go on to the yellow first, and let's just make it a little bit more of an actual strong yellow. Let's go back into the green, and let's make it a little bit of a brighter green. So go into this green, let's make it just a bit of a brighter green. And the wood on the back, which one is that? See, I should have labeled them. This one and this one. So let's do the corner poles a bit darker. Actually, I'm surprised that I have a wood material up here somewhere that is causing some shape on my wood. So one thing is also this. I'm going to add this into a folder in white mask. That way I can delete it off of these because it's making it too dark. And let's go through and find what the culprit is. Here's another one I don't want, so we can just do a white mask. I don't want it on these poles. And let's go through. So it'll be good to also labeling these folders so you're not checking things on and off like I'm doing right now, but we're gonna probably the wood veins. One of these is causing it. Which one? Green. No, here it is. It's the blue for some reason. That looks a little bit better, I think. So let's jump back into the renderer. And you can start getting an idea of how things are looking. And just continue tweaking things. Like the wheels, for example, they're looking a bit too flat, I think. I'm not happy with that. So I can go back in and maybe add a little bit more, make it less rough, more shiny, and more yellow. Let's jump back in. That's looking a bit better. Maybe that's just too yellow now. Yeah, I feel like most of the work can really be in this whole like jumping back and forth stage, because you spend a lot of time just tweaking things and trying to make it look real. But I hope this video was helpful. Gives you an idea of how I approach my models and how I apply materials, how I UV map. Basically, it's the same thing for almost every prop. Obviously, things change if it's like a game model or if it's, portfolio model or something like that. But more or less, the workflows are the same. One thing that might look actually good is if these were a little bit darker. So what I can do is jump back in, and sometimes it's easy to, let's see, I should have labeled what the hubs were so you can isolate. It's not even on this group. Let's go to the second group. And I'm going to label them whenever I find them. Or if you're lazy like me, oh, here, this hub. I didn't actually label it. We're going to just make it a darker hub. And then take away that sharp, bright edge that's on it, which is this. Which one is it? This one. We can deselect it. Oh, it's doing a save. Auto save. All right, so that's probably pretty good. The only other thing that maybe I don't like, and you can spend quite some time going back and forth, which I recommend doing. Like, take your time. This is kind of the stuff that really brings it to life. But what I was going to say is I don't like the red roughness right now. So I'm just making it a little bit more reflective. And that's basically it. Now, don't forget, you can find the full video in real time on my Patreon page, even though this was basically in real time. We did everything. It just includes a full UV mapping process and all the little things, but it's also, Patreon is the best way to help support my page. So if you like these types of videos, you want to see more random 3D models or tutorial videos, I have lots of other stuff on there similar to this, where I kind of talk throughout the process. It's also the best way to help support my page. So if you like these videos, you want to see more videos, please check it out. Please like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing. About half of you aren't subscribed that watch my videos, so it would really help my channel. It's probably the biggest thing you can do if you want to help support my art, is just subscribe to my channel. It would really mean a lot to me. And yeah, let me know what you thought about this video. Also, last tip, if you're rendering this out in Substance like I always do, just because it's quick, change the background. So if I export this image right now, I jump over to Photoshop. Well, the shadows, if I want to put a white background, are going to look really strange, or vice versa. If I want to put on a dark background, the shadows are going to look kind of white. You have to just change your background color. I always render out in solid black. The shadows will still be there. It's just going to have a better effect when you add some background textures or colors to your scene. So just one little thing, color to solid black. Other than that, you're basically good to go. There's other things you can do here, like these post-processing effects. I don't like to do this in Substance. I like just to add all that. I feel like I have much more control in Photoshop. So that's just something also I like to do. But anyways, let me know what you thought about this video. I hope you thought it was helpful, and I will catch you all in the next one.